think so? We're live, by the way.
Someone bet it. Oh,
Yeah, I'll be curious if I fix that problem.
but your mic isn't muted now, so it should be fine.
Yeah, it's usually, I mess up with the settings of
Okay.
OBS, and I tried like, hey, can I do some settings here? Can I do some settings
Yeah.
there? And what happens is I mess something up, and
Yeah. And then everybody calls you out on stream too.
yeah. So
That's
if
happened
my
before.
audio is not there, then call me out.
Yeah.
Dude, so apparently that's kind of funny. We've met in person before
We have.
at THU, and
That was a great
I
time.
think the problem is on that THU, I met way too many people.
You did. No, I mean, I just don't you remember it. You had like a mass gathering around you that followed you
That was
everywhere.
so crazy.
You had it was like a tour, the Mache tour bus. And you would go and you'd be like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go eat. See you later." And you would have
Everyone's
like
like,
this line,
no, much.
just like, "Oh," they would like follow you around. Yeah. So I made my quick. I was like, "Oh, hey Mache, see you," and that was it.
Yeah, it's
That was
funny.
fun.
But we did met like okay. Remind me when exactly? Like when was that? Was it in like
So
in the beer garden
we
area
were in
or?
the underground military bunker.
Oh right.
And near the Oculus setup. And I believe it was before you had done your talk, and it
Gotcha.
was super dark. And there were still people around you. I was not the only person. I think like David Tilton was there, and he had said hi to you, and I kind of joined in, and we just talked for a minute. But then you had to go. And dude, I don't blame you. Like there were tons of people around, and you had a lot of stuff you had to get prepared for with the talk and everything.
Dude, it's funny because like right before the talk, and I think it was on Thursday, like few days in, so I still had time to prepare, and I
Yeah.
was just like going over it. I think I went over the whole talk in my head, like in front of the mirror.
I'm sure, dude, that's nerve-wracking. That really is. Like you're speaking to like tons of your peers and people that look up to you, and like, probably like a extremely large audience. There are what, like close to 1,000 people or something in that auditorium.
No, no,
Were
no,
there a
no
lot? I
way.
thought I thought that was how
I
many
think it's
people
like
were at TSU.
400 people could sit in that
Okay.
auditorium, maybe
Okay.
500. I don't think it was
There
a
were a lot of
thousand.
people. There were a lot.
Thousand is like a theater, dude.
Okay.
Although it was kind of theater size.
It was pretty damn big.
Yeah, it was pretty darn
Uh,
huge, and it was almost packed.
yeah, oh, it
I
was
remember
packed.
that.
No, I
Yeah, yeah.
remember. Absolutely.
Why we're talking about B, by the way? That sometimes
Oh,
happens.
no, it's all good. No,
I
it's just
invite
funny.
I invite like an
Referencing.
amazing artist, and they interview me.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, I could. That would be fun too. I like interviewing people.
um, so let's introduce you this time.
Hi guys.
Finnian MacManus. You are, I don't know how old you are. You look 15. You're
Oh no.
darn young, dude. You're like this young wolf.
Oh god.
Getting everyone else out of work.
No, I hope not. Oh no, I'm just trying to take a little slice. I'm not trying to kick anybody out, that's for sure.
No, but I do love your work, and
Thanks, man.
we met before. I've seen your work before. I think I've seen your work prior to THU as
Oh,
well. Like I remember you were, this up and coming person because you've been in the industry for pretty short amount of time, right?
not too long, about like 4 years, I would say.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. So I remember like your work was coming up already back then. I was like, dude, that guy rips.
Dude, thanks, man. That really means a lot. I appreciate it, dude.
And then obviously, more recently, just looking at your portfolio, it's pretty intense. Yeah, it's pretty good. So let's introduce
Thanks.
you. Like let's talk about a little bit, who you are, where
Totally.
like maybe where you're from, a little bit,
Yeah, yeah.
just to get to
I'm
know
from
better.
Chicago, Illinois. My mother is a arts journalist. She had a radio show interviewing other artists actually for a long time, and now she's a travel kind of arts journalist. She documents ancient architecture. And my father, he is an architect and landscape designer, and he runs a firm for that in Chicago. So I come from a pretty arts heavy background, which I'm super lucky because my parents were okay with me going into this.
Gotcha.
When I was in high school, I was a pretty lonely kid in high school. I hated classes. I had all right grades. They weren't amazing. But every day, this was maybe when I was like 9 or 10, even up to when I was 15 or 16. I'd go back home and I would just draw the entire time. I'd draw in class so much that like my teachers like several times threw out my drawings in class because they realized that I wasn't paying attention at all, and they would just take like my drawings and chuck them. And that's kind of what got me into this. Is like I was really lucky how I discovered concept art. I think I was like 16 or 17, and I came to USC. I flew out here for like a short Maya course because I wanted to get into 3D, and it was like over the summer. And my teacher at the time told me, "Hey, your stuff kind of looks like concept art," and I didn't know what that was. And he said, "Go look at Art Center College of Design." Hadn't heard of it before, and I went up there and I saw the student gallery, and I knew that there's nowhere else I wanted to go. I have to go to that school, and I have to do this. And there really isn't anything else I could ever picture enjoying or liking besides, drawing and painting for a living. And yeah, so that's kind of how I started. I ended up applying to Art Center. It was an all 3D portfolio. I didn't really draw at all or paint at all at the time, and I knew I was going to get my ass handed to me, and I did. But I got in, thankfully. I remember just like breaking down when I got in because I was looking, online at all the other people who had applied, and they were so effing good. They could like draw anatomy and figures from every angle and character designs and creatures and all the shit. And I only had like some 3D environments. And so when I got there, I realized I really needed to pick up my game. And I was like the worst one in my class by far. And I just like studied extremely hard and ate a ton of ramen and pulled like 2 all-nighters a week for sure.
The infamous ramen, dude.
Oh man, so much ramen. I needed to. Like, there's nothing else you can make that quick, like. And I was lazy. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, when I was in the university, I was supposed to be an electrician. I would eat ramen all the time. Like, we had literally no time to do anything, and the commute was horrible. I remember.
Oh God, I'm sure.
Did you end up being on the campus like when you moved?
They don't have Art Center has never had a dormitory. You were never able to live there, and that was a bit tough because I'm sure there's way more independent people than I am. But moving from Chicago to LA and not knowing anything about the housing market or how to find an apartment, I had never lived anywhere else but at home. So I needed to so I found some roommates, thankfully, that were also going there. And we lived about like 15-minute drive, I would say, from the Hillside campus.
It's not too bad.
No, it wasn't bad at all. I'm very thankful. We found something that was nice. We split it. And they were really great roommates to have. So I think in every aspect of my life, I've been extremely lucky, like really, really lucky. And that's, it all, I don't know how it happened, but, even back then it was great that I found the school. It was great that I could find housing. It was great that I could meet, my mentors that inspired me and taught me. And, I was going to Art Center for a while, for 2 years. And I got to this point where, I was still learning a ton at the school. But I also realized, at that point, I would do anything to work in this industry. I didn't really have any like long-term goals. I was like, I just want to paint and live somehow. And I got I saw Sony had a position open at their Santa Monica studio, and I applied for it. This was like 2 years into Art Center, and I got an art test, and I failed miserably. And I look back and I'm like, damn, what the F was I thinking? And I still have the work somewhere. And I instead, they were super generous and they offered me an internship. And looking back, that was like the best thing that could ever happen, because I think even if I did get in as a concept artist, I would have failed so much. Like the first 5 assignments I probably did there were all just utter failure. Like none of them, like I would do, 20 floor designs, and there were things like call outs, like really simple things. Yeah. And each one would just get shot down instantly. Like, no, too busy, doesn't match the architecture, doesn't look okay, too crazy. Like, and it was like that for a while, and it was like that for probably a month until I started getting the hang of it and the hang of design, because I didn't really know what design was at that point. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of like the intro to the industry.
So you entered pretty, I would say pretty quickly and on pretty good level. Like Sony Santa Monica is not is not something to sneeze at, you know?
No, you're right, and it's just because of their internship program. Like I said, I wouldn't have been able to be a concept artist there straight away. I eventually became a concept artist there, but it was only because they had great mentors working there that were willing to help me out, like Luke
Right.
Berlin, who is incredible at design, and
Yeah, I like Luke.
they
Luke is a nice guy
yeah.
too.
Oh, he's a great guy. And they were willing to teach me like the fundamentals of proportional relationships and shape language. And, at the same time I was working there, I also went to brainstorm. So I got to learn from like John Park and James Peck. And it
Right.
was like a perfect combo where I would learn stuff at work and then apply it to my homework, and that would feed into work. And it was a really great learning experience. And I'm really thankful to those guys for teaching me.
And then somewhere down the road, you ended up working on Avatar. How the hell that happened?
Yeah. Yeah, that was another like life-changing experience. And I was working at ILM at the time in San Francisco. I had moved up there for a little over a year,
Mhm.
and having a blast, mind you. Like I was really enjoying my time there. Like the ILM team is one of the most hardworking, exceptionally skilled group of people with an incredible leadership and incredible just designers. I was working there, and my friend John had told me that they were looking for someone and that I should submit my work. So one day Dylan gave me a call saying that he was looking for someone to come down, and I was just blown away. Like I still remember getting called by Dylan, and I knew like I got a call and I answered it. I was at my desk at the time. I was like, "Hello." And he's like, "This is Dylan Cole from Avatar," and I just like my heart dropped, and I just like stood up and walked outside. Like I just like left the building, started walking in the park. It was on the Presidio, and I was really freaked out. Like I was like, "Damn, I'm speaking to Dylan Cole right now." And like this guy is my hero.
He's
One
a
of the best
legend.
designers, legends. Yeah, of
Yep.
course. And I just knew it was a really hard decision to leave ILM. Like it really was, because ILM is one of the best places you can work, and I learned how to design for film there. And at the same time, at that time, I was in an emotionally kind of weird place because my family had moved to LA and I had left right as they moved. So I hadn't
Gotcha.
seen them for the entire time I was in school, and I felt like I wanted to go back. I missed things about living here.
Hmm.
So it just seemed like the right time to come down here and start working on Avatar. And that was, of course, it's crazy.
The perfect
Uh,
storm.
Jesus, like those guys, like the most crazy group of people ever. And it was awesome in the same way because I was like so low on the totem pole compared to them that every single thing I would see them do was like mind blowing. And John had prepared me beforehand and said, "Finn, you're going to see a level of artwork that you have never seen before." And it was totally true. Like, every day learning new things and trying to get better and being around people that push you to grow and inspire you as a person, I think is really important. And I still try to do that today, not just with like work life, but with my friends and with people that I talk with and try to be around. But that was like a really crazy experience. It was great.
I can imagine. Yeah, I met Dylan once when I was meeting with the Avatar crew for lunch. Yeah, it was an incredible experience to talk with that guy. Him and Ben Proctor, and
Oh yeah.
obviously all the other people that work there. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
it's such a
They're
great team.
they're an awesome group and all super friendly, all willing to help. I think it says a lot that like I didn't expect all the artists at that level, the people that really were like the best in the industry. I didn't expect them all to be super generous and helpful, but they all were. And they all would like, I sat there having lunch with these guys and just like being, what the fuck? Like, how did this happen?
You're like having
Uh,
absolutely nerding out. Oh,
yeah,
Dylan.
yeah, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
it's very lucky that I get to call them my friends now. Like they're a super awesome group of people.
Yeah, I don't think people realize. Maybe some do, especially if you go to like conventions and you actually meet artists, those like really high level ones, the legends, quote unquote. If you meet them in person, like regular people, like
Oh,
regular,
totally,
awesome,
totally.
cool folks.
Yeah.
Very very normal. It has like it's a very dispelling effect to meet someone who you admire like a lot, and then realize, oh, he's like an actual normal cool dude. Like a
Yeah.
person I could hang out with.
Yeah.
Um, I had exactly same experience, when it comes to meeting those guys. It was awesome. Like we went
Yeah.
for lunch, and kudos to Dylan and Ben for basically making the dream team of concept art.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. They
Because
did a
it
good job.
really is. Who's working there right now? I know Jonathan Berube is there. Nick Jindra,
I see Nick in
good
the chat.
friend.
Hey, Nick. Yeah, Nick's there right now kicking ass.
Oh,
I
there he
don't
is.
have like an up to date roster. And hey, Jama, good to see you too, my
Yeah,
friend.
Jama's there in the chat
Uh,
too.
yeah, I know it's super late for him, so thanks for joining us, Jama.
They all love you, dude. It's all for you.
Oh,
It's
I
not for
love them.
me.
I love them back. Yeah, I miss those guys so much. So yeah, I don't have an up to date roster of who exactly is working there right now because people move around,
Yeah,
but
in this industry.
the core team is still there for sure.
So you've done quite some work already. You started with Sony Studios. Did you move to San Francisco right after that, or?
I did. I was at Sony for a little over a year, and I got a call for ILM. I ended up leaving Sony and going back to school for a bit because I felt that I needed to focus on my education a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I still feel like, I'm taking class right now. I take classes. I try to take a couple classes every year. And back then, I had been at Brainstorm for like 2 or 3 terms, and that's when I got a call from ILM, and I hadn't reached out to them, so it really took me by surprise, and I
Right.
dropped the class, unfortunately, and just was like, okay, I've got to do that, got to move out there. And I had some friends already working there that told me how wonderful it was, like Steven Zavala, and it was, there's all these experiences that you go through in life, and I know you've had these for sure because you talked about it, where you like arrive somewhere and your life is going to change
Oh
from
yeah,
that point going
yeah.
forward,
You
and
can
it's this
feel it.
great,
Mm-hmm.
it's this great feeling. It's like you got there and like you get shivers and your heart drops, and it's like, wow, this shit is going to change my life.
Yeah.
And I knew at that moment that I had to go there and experience that. And yeah, those, I learned just, I saw them just a couple weeks ago, the guys from IOM, they came down to look at Galaxy's Edge,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of them worked on, which is crazy. If anybody listening in the chat, you guys want to check out Disneyland, Galaxy's Edge is an incredible
It's pretty
masterpiece of
insane.
detail and world building. Um, and yeah, those guys continue to rock it and do an amazing job. Yeah.
Yeah, ILM has really, really good team, like really awesome people working there too. And I only hear like positive things about, at least the design part of it. I never know how the VFX works there, but I think ILM is like one of those powerhouses where it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
You hear you hear different things about different VFX studios, how difficult it is to work in those studios because of like insane crunch times and
Totally. And
expectations. But I've never heard any of that about ILM. I would be
no,
curious.
their
curious,
art
but
department, the managers treat the artists very generously and very
Mhm.
kind. And I still have, I still call the managers of my team are still my good friends, and I try to go up there and see them from time to time. And it's never was a relationship where you felt like you were being oppressed or mismanaged or anything. Like, yes, it was hard work, but it's hard work because of the clients you have and because of the level that's required. It's not like
yeah,
they're not putting extra pressure on you. It's that it's on you to get it done. And if you fail, it's on you. And there were moments where I failed for sure. And those are the moments where I learned the most. But yeah, no, they treat their artists very, very well there.
yeah. I think it's a self-correcting industry. Once you work in the team, I don't know if it's healthy or not. But once you work on the project with the team and you see all the talent that is out there, all the people that put their hearts into the project, and you see
Yeah.
how much they care, it's like it feels sleazy and dirty not to do it that way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not to push yourself to be the best and really deliver the best results
Yeah.
from your end. Um,
A lot of people don't think that way. I definitely think that way. I know you think that way, and a lot of our friends do. A lot of people are okay, they get a job and
mm,
they're okay not being passionate that much about it. They have their job and it can sustain them for probably the rest of their life. And they're okay with that. And I know a lot of people like that too, and it's perfectly fine, I think, to be in that situation. But I think, personally, in my opinion, and I know you think of this similar probably, is that you want to push yourself to the maximum potential that you can get out. You know, we don't have that much time on this planet as individuals. And I see everything that we do, like every skill, every discipline, it's like you want to push to see what you're capable of as a person, because everybody's capable of insanely awesome things, but you're never going to find out if you just sit there. You have to really work at it every day. And even just something like an hour a day on anything, in, you know, 5 years, you'll be really, really good at it. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be, you know, playing piano. It could be, you know, rock climbing. I don't know. But any skill you dedicate yourself to over time is good. You're going to get some level of mastery with it.
It's true.
So sorry to throw out a tangent there. No, but
it's all good,
it's,
man.
what you said was, you know, it's just like, I've always tried to strive for being better than myself yesterday or last week or something. And it isn't always like that. Like, there's days where I look at the work that I'm doing and I'm like, man, I could have done a lot better on this, or push myself harder. I mean, does that ever happen to you, or is it?
All the time.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you. Like, I try to push, but I do have days where, like, fuck, no, I'm just gonna do what I need to do and call it a day, you know?
Yeah, and I think you're allowed to do that. Like, it's not, we're human in the end. We have to have rest days, and we have to enjoy life. You know, I think that just in doing art, it's a great thing, doing concept art, working hard, but to be a well-rounded person, you have to do a lot more than that. And you have to be able to take breaks, and you have to learn about the world and do other things with your life, and those things are things that will come back and influence you as a person and as a designer.
Yeah. How do you find that balance, by the way? You know, when you work on a project, and you know, the reality is, once you join like a film crew, art department, and you start working on like really, you know, up there kind of project, not, you know, like working for Avatar, working with crew over at Sony Santa Monica, or, you know, ILM. Those are big players. It's not, those are not like a small clients that you get to work with for a few weeks and you call it a day. Those are, like, as you said, those could be your life-changing moments where you do the job, right? I think the biggest problem, not a problem, but like finding the right balance when working with really high profile clients, or working for a team like that, where you want to deliver your absolute best, but also you want to balance yourself and have those, you know, lower output days, so that you don't burn out yourself completely. Because the problem is, like, once you burn out, there's you just either have to stop.
It's a spiral effect, right? If you keep going,
down,
it just, like, it ruins everything.
So where do you find that balance?
I really like taking breaks after a project is done, and I schedule it whenever I'm on a production nowadays. I tell them in advance what my breaks are going to be. So I'm like, okay, you know, next month I'm taking this week off to go travel. And that's usually what I do to regenerate, is I go to another country. And a lot of times it's by doing a workshop. And then I'll spend like 5 days after the workshop just going around, walking around, doing plein air painting, and kind of enjoying wherever I'm at. That's like my way to recharge. So I'll try to do that like once every 2 months, I would say. I'll take like a week off and do something like that. And I've noticed that when I take on 2 gigs, that's when it gets kind of tricky. You know,
the insane,
you know, you've been there, it
town.
gets tricky. And, you know, there's always that second project that comes and you're like, I can't pass this up for whatever reason. Could be that it's an awesome thing. Could be that you need it for other reasons. And yeah, that's when it gets trickier. And I've definitely had points, even like recently, like as far back as like 3 or 4 months ago, where I was like, dang, I need to stop doing this. Because I can tell, I think it's like a feeling you get where you're like, okay, I'm working all the weekdays, weeknights, weekends. What do I have left for myself? And if there's nothing left, then you need to change something. And I tend to personally work myself into those situations accidentally, but I'll realize it before things spiral. So I'll be like, you know, if I'm on a production, I'll always finish it. But if I have to re-sign on to something, I'm going to make sure that my needs as a person are taken care of before I sign on. So I'll always have a trip planned or something planned that will, relax me and like maybe it'll be like learning something about another culture. Maybe it'll be just taking time off to do my personal work or taking a class even. Like those are things that all really help me out as a designer, but also let me have downtime from the day-to-day job. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's pretty important. I found, I guess it takes a couple of tries to actually find where your limits are at,
Hmm.
and like do a couple of projects. And obviously, the first order of business is like push yourself as much as you can, and just find where your limits are, and then
Yes, absolutely.
push over a little bit, and then take a break. Obviously, you don't want to take like a massive hit during the project that can
Yeah,
turn bad.
yeah,
Um, but I
but
agree with you, man, on
yeah.
this. I agree with you 100%. It's so important to find the balance. I think for
Hmm.
me it's like about 4 months.
Hmm.
After like 4 months of really intensive, going after, like I
Yeah,
need to slow down,
yeah,
one way or
totally.
another. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that happened to me recently last year was the reason that I took off from Avatar, and that was also an extremely hard decision to make, was to travel and was to take a longer break because the previous like 3 or 4 years when I was a student, my dream was to basically travel and work as a freelancer. And I had realized at that point that the position I was working myself into was to be someone that just worked nonstop, and I needed to change that. And I had the opportunity to, and I took like 6 months off basically from work just
Nice.
to travel. And that was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And I
Where
definitely
did you go?
recommended it all over. So I roomed with five other artists in London. That was kind of like my headquarters with some friends of mine at ILM actually there. And we shared a big house, which was one of the best experiences I've had. Just being there with those other talented people and being able to come home and see what they are doing in their personal time. And but what I would do is I ship my computer there and some clothes, and every 2 weeks I travel to a new country for 2 weeks. So I started off. I went to Portugal. I went to France a few times. Italy, Malta, Spain, Netherlands, Germany, Norway. I ended up at the end of the trip doing a month break in Thailand and Cambodia, which was probably the
Nice.
highlight for me because it's such a different culture and
Oh
it's
yeah.
such a it completely separated me from my reality back home because there were a lot of places I went to and I was traveling with two friends of mine. We didn't have signal or we didn't have means of communicating or being launched back into the art sphere that we're like normally accustomed with. And that was great because it separated our lives from just the reality that we're used to. And it
Mm,
inspired us in a lot of ways that I didn't think I would be able to be inspired.
right.
So that was one of those instances where I took a really long break. I did a little bit of freelance while I was gone, but most of it was just trying to launch my own personal project, which I'm still working on, and just seeing the world and learning about other cultures. Because I feel like I love living in LA and living in the US, but I feel a lot of times it can be very insular. Where if you live in LA and like you only live around LA people and you just do everything here. I feel like the culture is so strong and prevalent in LA that it's kind of like molds you into this person that is like not one dimensional, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's you become this guy that only talks about things going on in LA. And I really wanted to break out of that because whenever I spoke with friends of mine that were from Europe, they always thought about all these different things. Like they knew about what was happening with every country, and they knew about the history of all these different wars that happened, and like how countries were founded and medieval rulers. All these things that were so fascinating to me,
Hmm.
and that's something that I really tried to infuse into my life. Was that like learning more about different nations and different cultures, different ways of life and since then, that's been something that's been really important for me to kind of pursue and bring into art. Like the more you learn about the outside world, the better your art is going to be. The more
Yeah.
outside influences you bring in, the more interesting you are as a person and as a designer, because all the memories you make of visiting those places, talking with those people, it's all subconsciously translated into your design decisions. Yeah, so sorry to ramble on about yes, a really
So
quick
good.
question.
Matters. It matters a lot because
It does matter to me a lot. Yeah.
yeah, there's something about being in one place all the time. It can drive you crazy. Well, not maybe drive you crazy, but it definitely closes the doors for you in terms of like having a healthy perspective on what's going on with the world, you know?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
And that's one of the things, you know, like I'm obviously European. I came here about 10 years ago. About 10 years. 10 years been here. And one of the things you realize pretty quickly when you move from country to country is how different culturally those countries are, you know? And I'm pretty sure you had that experience when you moved and lived. You had your satellite home for 6 months in London, like how different culturally everything is, how similar mundane daily things are done in a completely different way. Even though, you know, both countries are technically, you know, like the first world rich countries, you know, it's still everything is so different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, you meet different people. Those people have different perspective. They have different view on the world, what matters in the world, what matters to them, what matters to you. And it's a very, very interesting reality check to understand like how different people think. You can get that to a certain degree, and that's specifically for LA crew.
Yeah.
If you just get out of town, like even if you just go to like not suburbs, like but like rural areas.
See,
like,
I haven't done that as much. Tell me about that. That's really interesting.
I mean, I don't travel a lot, but I do sometimes like those road trips every now and then to visit like a cool spot, and then I usually take a few days extra to be there. So I'm not rushing everything. I don't want to be a tourist in the area. Like I don't want to just go there and just visit like the most popular spot, take some photos and get out.
Yeah, totally.
That's like the worst thing you can do. I did that in the beginning, and I hated it. Like going like that's the first time I visited.
Oh, so you went around with the camera. You're like, oh, this sucks. This, oh God, no.
No. What I mean is, you know, like
I know, I'm just joking.
But yeah. So like you know when you've been to Yosemite, right?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh, you didn't? Oh my
no,
God! I should stop talking to you right
now.
now.
Yeah, I know. I should just leave. I should just walk out. You know,
dude, it's so close. You should go. It's like 5 hours. 5 hours.
I was planning to for a while. It will happen. Thank you, though. How was it?
Here's the thing. It's probably the most crowded park out there.
Oh wow! Okay.
It's so crowded, but it's so freakishly beautiful because you're like right on the valley floor, and you have those mountains that just grow like 3,000 feet. From the floor all the way up, and you can actually get like on top of one of them. There's like few points, like Taft Point and Glacier Point, where you have the view on the valley, and it's such a crazy view because you look down and it's like, oh, I didn't know I'm in Legoland. You know?
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I really need to do that. I've had a lot of friends that go, and I need to plan a trip sometime.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But like when you go there, it's like it's so touristy. You feel like a tourist, and if you go there for like very short amount of time, it's just like why do you even like? It's like I'm in the I'm in the city, but it's just nature, you know.
It feels weird going to nature and feeling like you're a tourist in nature, not in like some Eiffel Tower or something else, but in nature. Like you're around trees and mountains, and you feel like tourists.
Yeah, but so like for instance, like last weekend.
Yeah,
last weekend, I took my family to.
Yeah, you said you were on way from Memorial Day.
Yeah. So we went for a Big Bear trip. The weather was horrible. Like I actually feel bad for my family. I feel awesome for myself because I took that time to take a lot of photos.
Oh, great!
Like, just wander off completely and just just be by myself and take a lot of footage. And I did that little film with it actually. That was like not planned kind of thing, but it's just like, oh my God, the weather is so perfect for doing that specifically.
Yeah.
But what
wait, so why was it not good weather otherwise?
Yeah, you expect to be 60s, 70s, and it's 34, 32.
Oh, it's just freezing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Snowing, raining, windy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. Like being in the middle of May. Going from like 70 degrees and like I didn't bring a jacket, you know.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
guys weren't exactly prepared for the
No,
weather to
I
be
mean,
like that.
I knew to take a jacket because I knew that the night's gonna be, harsh.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect that, like none of
Okay.
that. But I was just like, oh, whatever, power through it. But and by no stretch of imagination, Big Bear is the rural. Like it's still
Hmm.
so close to LA, but it felt like so different. Going to a restaurant and like seeing people and what they talk about, like just eavesdropping on what they're talking about.
Yeah. What were some
It's
of the
such a
things? Like,
different it's such a
I'm
different
really interested.
like I don't know, like I feel, and that's not that I don't think that's my it's the
That's not
observation that
your
I
point.
only
I
have.
know. I
Yeah,
know.
but
Yeah.
but when you're in LA, like vast majority of people you meet here, they put up this persona of who they are.
Totally.
They're
Yeah,
like
like a
just like,
guise
oh
or
my,
mask, right?
exactly,
Oh my
exactly.
God. Yeah, you see it everywhere. Totally.
It's
It's really
so
hard to
frustrating.
for me to converse with people like that.
Yeah. You ask someone how you doing. I'm awesome. Like everyone is doing awesome. Everyone is doing great. Everyone is like having time of their life. It's like, wow, like this
Or
must.
the secret jutsu of like saying how are you to someone but not actually expecting a response.
Yeah, like how are you, like
Like you walk
off.
by someone, you're like, how are you? And then you keep walking. Like that happens a lot too.
Oh man, that's so frustrating. And I catch myself doing that as well. Like I'm getting
Oh man,
affected.
the awkward smiles of when you're like walking past someone and like you make eye contact, you're like, you know what I mean? Like that gets to me too, but you can't really avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I hate that, but once you're here for too long, you get to experience that,
Yeah, definitely.
and you get to
Yeah.
like actually become that person. So I agree with you. Like just having that time off where you go and experience something and have a perspective.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like another thing is, I'm not into politics at all. Like I
Mm.
hate like anytime someone starts talking about politics, I just like tune out completely. Like I'm not part of it. And this town is so like everyone talks about it.
It's politically
Everyone's,
driven for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and everyone wants to like, which podcast I've heard it at, but someone made like a perfect comment of what this town really is. I think it must have been Chris D'Elia or
Oh
someone
God, I
like
love
that,
Chris D'Elia.
and they
Yeah,
said
he's hilarious.
this town is like all about one upmanship. So like you're doing good, but I'm doing better.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You're a good person, but look at me, how good I am.
Mhm.
It's like me. I'm better. I'm better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's very self-obsession
hmm
focused.
yeah.
Yeah.
You don't experience that outside of this town. Like if you
Yeah.
go, like if you drive down, let's say, I did a couple of trips with my family. It's like one of our favorite spots to go to every now and then. Like we drive through Pacific Coast
Mm.
Highway to
Yes,
Monterey,
beautiful.
and you stop at those smaller towns along the way, and you go to eat and whatever, just relax for a bit, like so you're not on the road all the time. And like people talk about completely different subjects, like they are living regular life.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
talking about what they are actually doing, not what they want you to think that they are doing,
Yeah.
which is like the one of the things that I think you start to experience and have a better perspective of what life really is once you get out um, and experience some other places.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because otherwise you're just assuming, you're just assuming and you're ill informed. But that's good to hear. Like I don't travel a lot. I don't know. I have like a weird aversion to traveling. I don't. I like it, but then I hated it. I hate it as well. There's just like this weird mix.
Mm. Is it
uh,
the plane or like is
I
it
hate flying, by the way. Like I
okay,
hate it.
it's
Yeah, for
flying
sure.
itself. Okay.
Flying sucks. I hate it.
Yeah.
I've watched too many catastrophe movies.
Oh man, okay.
It might be because I had like a one flight experience where the turbulences were like, oh, I gonna die. Like I
Yeah.
definitely gonna die. And once
There's
you have that
scary moments like that
experience,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I do like going to play, like visiting those different places, and experiencing them. And I think that's super important for
Mhm.
an artist. Like even if it's just going somewhere local, for a
Yeah, I mean
weekend
that's the
trip.
thing. You can go wherever you live in the world. You drive for 2 hours and you're going to be in a different place. You'll find something unique
Yeah.
that's interesting and different. Even here in LA, you drive 2 hours, or go to Joshua Tree. Going to
Hmm.
find some really interesting shapes that you're not going to see anywhere else.
There's so
So
much good stuff around LA. It's kind of crazy how well positioned this city is in
yeah,
relative to what you can see.
yeah,
Because like it's
absolutely.
if it's winter time, you're enjoying summer weather. It's awesome. It's usually
Yeah,
pretty warm. You can go to the beach.
yeah,
2 hours away, you're skiing.
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. Totally, complete switch.
and you
Yeah,
have like those monumental national parks that are within a day drive basically. You have
yeah.
Yosemite, you have Mojave, you have Death Valley.
That I haven't gone to at all. It will change.
Yeah, and my next like a bigger trip on the map would be, I think it would be Death Valley, but I probably wouldn't
Okay.
go there in the winter.
Yeah.
Going there in the summer is, I don't
It's so
I,
it's not you're not
it's
gonna
not fun.
die when you go there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It's too
that,
hot.
and also just like from visual perspective, like I don't think there is. I mean, obviously it's fun to see dry weather, hot,
Mm,
but I can see that anywhere in the summer
that's
around
true.
LA.
Yeah, you
It's
don't need
just
to drive hours to go see it.
yeah, it's just the heat is not as aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But then like you can still enjoy the landscape, but without 110-degree outside.
Yeah, yeah, totally, man.
So definitely a more of a winter kind of trip. I do want to see the Mammoth Lake area pretty soon as well.
I haven't even heard of that.
Mammoth
I should
Lakes,
know.
Mammoth
Yeah.
Lakes. So it's it's Route 395. It goes, I think it goes towards. It's basically goes all the way up to Lake Tahoe,
Mm,
Lake Tahoe or Tahoe, I
like
think.
Tahoe.
Tahoe. And it's like Big Bear is the closest skiing
Mm,
resort. Like Mammoth Lakes would be the second closest,
mm,
but it's still like I guess like 6 hours away.
yeah,
There's some beautiful spots there.
totally.
Some 14,000 feet mountains.
Yeah.
Proper good looking mountains.
Yeah.
Like I think there's this wallpaper. I think it was on Mac. If you get MacBook Sierra, like
Mm.
Mac OS Sierra,
Just the
you
the
have this mountain
default
range.
background.
Yeah, you have that mountain
Yeah.
range, like a sunset mountain range. It's exactly that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a wonderful area. I want to check it out definitely. It feels like a great spot to like do really cool photography too.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever plein air or no?
No, no,
No?
not
Okay.
anymore. I used to like do it a little, like very
Yeah.
little, but I never found myself to do it enough to actually, yeah, I never.
Want to pursue it more,
Mhm.
I guess, or develop it.
I don't feel like I don't know. I
Hey,
feel
if you
like
don't feel an attraction to it, then don't do it.
yeah,
Like
I
it's
I, I personally don't. I feel
yeah,
like I like to move around and do different things, and
yeah,
if you've been following what I do,
yeah,
you probably noticed that it's kind of crazy because someone might follow my work because they see my Showtime images, and then like all of a sudden I'm posting photos. Like, what the hell, dude?
yeah. Yeah, and you have a variety of styles as well. So
Yeah, I'm trying to like explore what works for me specifically,
yeah,
and
totally.
recently, I really really got back into photography. I used to do that a couple of years ago, where I'll be like going crazy and like putting a lot of effort towards it, and also buying equipment and like just like really obsessing about photography.
I mean, it's a great way to practice other skills as well,
Oh
though,
yeah,
because you just it's like an instant way to capture composition, lighting, shape design, even just
yeah.
from your point of view. You can learn so much from it. And I do a lot of photography as well. I have a big set of cameras. I should start posting some of it. I don't really take the time to edit things than I should. But it's definitely a huge helper.
Yeah.
And I used to try to take like texture photos and things like that I've used in work, but it ended up being so much of a pain when you're like, when you're on a project and you have tons of photos, say from a trip you've done. I almost never go through my photos to try to use something. I always just Google something, like or find a faster way. So now I just kind of focus on just trying to find an interesting composition, just like interesting shapes, and try to learn more about how to compose an image just through that. It's helped a lot for sure.
It definitely helps. Once you learn the basics of camera and start to understand like how aperture and shutter speeds work, and then like when you actually go and get yourself into filming as well, that's a whole different game, because it's not like you have to do pretty much everything you've been doing with photography, but now also in motion.
yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. I'm not there yet,
and
but
just like
one day
so
I'll
many
try.
things can go wrong. So many things. Like my next big step, obviously, I want to get into filming. Like I have so many good ideas. We'll verify if they're good once they come out.
I'm sure they'll be good, man.
But so many ideas for like movie projects, like personal short films. And I have a perfect friend for that as well, who kicks my ass all the time, Ash Thorpe.
Oh, I was gonna say it has to be Ash, yeah.
Yeah, he gives me so much shit. Oh my god.
Oh yeah. Well, it's great to have someone like that though that will push you like really hard to improve in something, because there's so many people, like, you'll have a lot of friends that they might know something that's wrong, but they're not going to tell you, or they're not going to say it for fear of offending you, or maybe they're not sure how you're going to take it. But to have someone that will really help you push, the way you think about things is really rare and important, I think. Or at least to like know someone on that level where they feel comfortable enough to do that, to really tell you about every mistake.
Yeah, we're super comfortable with one another.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Oh, you know what? Your work sucks. Like we don't like. If it hurts your feelings, that good. That means it's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, we push each other's buttons. That's super important. It's very rare to find a person that will do that to you and be comfortable with it. But I think it's important. I think that's what's being lost in the community right now, because everyone wants to feel so happy about themselves and not offend anyone else that it's almost like walking on the eggshells.
Yeah.
And it can be annoying, because I feel oftentimes some people just need that little extra kick, and that would just make their work so much better, but they never get that.
Yeah,
I everyone think is just
like, have to seek it now. And whereas before, like in the forum days at least, it would be like everybody expects it. Everybody you post a piece up on a forum, you're going to get shat on in some way. And it's fine, because then you'll take that critique and improve it. It'll be really useful. But I think now the expectation of when you post something isn't to receive critique on it or something like that. It's you have to actually be the person yourself to seek out that extra feedback, which is like a really good trait to have. Like I'll always, I'm trying to learn how to do creatures now, and I will ping my creature design friends to give me advice on everything I do. Like there's this guy, Luis Carrasco, who I work with in ILM, and he's a really good friend of mine, and he will always tell me if I'm doing, kind of like Ash to you, he'll always tell me when I'm doing a shit. And he totally did, like this last week when I asked him about something, he was like, man, you could have thought about this in so many better ways. And I knew instantly, man, I'm so glad I have that guy there to help me get better and improve, because it's rare. Like you said, it's rare to find that. And people, I think if you don't seek that out, if you don't have people that are really experienced in an area that you can confidently ask for advice, it will like stunt your growth a lot. Like there's certain things that you can just practice that and you'll get better. But we all know that there's certain people that will practice the same thing, and because they're not like literally trying to improve, they just assume that they'll improve by doing it, their trajectory may not increase. They could be doing the same type of work forever and not really get better. But it's the people that are able to see that they're at fault and like see that they can really push themselves to a better limit, and they ask their friends, they create that community. And yeah, I definitely agree, it's lacking right now. I'm not sure what the solution to that is. Like I think everybody wants there to be a solution, and everybody agrees that something's wrong with the communal aspects. But I'm not sure, just because of how technology has limited people's attention spans, I'm not sure how. I mean, really though, like, no one wants to browse a forum these days. Like I've tried to sign up to new forums, and within a week I'm like, oh man, this isn't gonna work.
It's empty.
And I don't know what the solution to that is. I hope there is a solution. but it's definitely a different world now. There's in so many ways it's better, but with Gumroad, Patreon, all those things, and in other ways it's worse with less of a whole community. It's good that there's these events though, like THU and other events like that. I think those are the substitutes that really do help push the community as a whole to increase and get better. And if you look at just art in general, I think that if you compare the general standard of concept art 10 years ago to today, I think as a whole, humanity is progressing in a very good direction in terms of how taste evolves, how design evolves. I think it's really good.
I couldn't agree more. Like if you compare what was considered the top of the top of the top of concept art in 2005 compared to what the top of the top of the top, or like let's put it this way. The best concept art you've ever seen or considered to be best concept art in 2004 or 5 looks like garbage compared to an average post on the ArtStation today.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I the only thing that I will say is that there were, those people back then, like say 20 years ago, that were, what's the right word? I mean, it's like, obviously we have masters around today, but like legendary, like Sid Mead level, Ralph McQuarrie level. There's not many people like that. I don't know. Are there?
No, I think the saturation definitely makes it very difficult to pinpoint. Like you have to be now way more exceptional than before. And there is just so much more work you can compare to.
Yeah, so it just gets kind of lost in the masses somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very, like, I agree with you. It's very difficult to pinpoint like one specific, like, is there any artist out there right now that you would consider, like an absolute living legend, It's probably still going to be Sid Mead to today,
That's easily. Still working.
Yeah, exactly. And easily. But then, like obviously Craig Mullins. Craig Mullins hasn't been active though, I haven't seen his work, his newer work that often. I don't know.
He is working on films.
I know,
sure.
but I don't think he cares enough to post anymore.
Oh yeah, no, I see what you mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's an absolute legend. He's the grandfather of digital painting, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
So absolute legend, mad respect. Like I basically grew up on him.
Yeah. But so you were there like on the forums with him and like getting critiques and stuff like that.
I joined Siegen forums at the tail end of him being there. So I still seen him posting every now and then when I joined the forums, but that was like a tail end. He just like, trickled down a little bit, and then eventually he stopped. Like you could name names. You could name like John Park, Jamie Jones. You could like name, Dylan Cole and all of those artists, but they are don't get me wrong, they are amazing artists, but they're not Sid Mead. They just aren't. Like I'm trying to be real about that, like you have to be something really special and somehow stand out to like the level of magnitude that is undenying. Because you could argue, let's say, whose work is better, John Park's, or Dylan Cole's, or whatever. Like name your top artists, and it could be a toss up, Like,
it's just that I think everybody's so different in the way they approach it now.
Yeah.
It's like it's no longer all just like pen and draftmanship and just in terms of like pure design on pen on paper, but there's so many different digital aspects to it now that everybody has their totally unique style. And in a way, because everybody is so unique, it ends up that not many people stand out because there's so many unique ways to approach something, because there's so many new tools being developed, because there's so many different mindsets and aspects to design. I mean, that's like part of the reason that we're living in such an awesome era is that, there are now a lot of art, like concept artists I know that are working on architecture and like building structures, like big, massive buildings, and they don't know engineering. There's people that don't have degrees in architecture but are able to design the aesthetics for like things that will be on this earth forever, and it's really incredible that our discipline, all the unique artists in our discipline can expand out into those different avenues, and we can leave, I guess, a mark on the world in something other than concept art just by using the skills we developed
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
this industry.
Absolutely. It's kind of crazy because it just cross pollinates, like just the way technology progressed and the
Hmm.
way software became so easy. Like
Hmm.
going into like CAD design a couple of years ago, like a
Hmm.
little more than a couple of years ago, was you had to have a lot of money to buy a software in the first place.
Hmm.
But then the software was so technical and slow to work on that it
Hmm.
was almost impossible for an average, or like a good
Yeah,
artist to
for a
switch
person to pick it
over
up.
and make it purposeful.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas
totally.
today, it's like you can just swap over and not only use the same software for concept art, but also for like actual engineering.
Hmm. Yeah,
And it's really crazy. I guess the best
yeah,
example would be, Vitali, just
yeah.
doing
Of
that
course,
exactly.
of course. Yeah.
um, but yeah, you are doing something interesting that not many artists do. There's quite a few outliers that try, and they do it really well. But you are concepting with VR.
Hmm.
You're doing it actually a lot. I was looking at your work.
Yeah, pretty much every day. Like there's days where I don't use it for like just things that'll be faster painting, but
Hmm.
most days I find I'm using a VR kit to sculpt something. Um,
Do you use
yeah,
it for like how much? If you would put like a percentage on, okay, I guess this amount of percent of my work that I do towards a project would be sculpted, or like at least have a
ooh.
base in VR. Like what would you say? Like
You
what's
know,
the?
by it's different every project, right?
Hmm.
Because there's projects I've been on where like 80% has been VR, which is crazy to me. And there's other projects I've been on when maybe it's only like 20%, maybe none. But most of the projects I'm on now, I would use VR at some point. And I would say in the last like year, like definitely like 50% of the work I've done, maybe 40, 50% has been in VR. Um, and there's part of it to me that is just it makes for me just my opinion understanding the relationship of volumetric shape. uh when you're designing anything, architecture, creatures, interior design, being
Hmm.
able to stand there and be able to build it out makes it so much easier for my brain to wrap around it, because when you're drawing something on a piece of paper, what you're really doing is you're taking an idea in your head, then you can probably imagine it, 3D. You're like, okay, this is, a horse, or this is a piece of architecture.
Right.
You can probably like rotate it. But when you have to put that on a 2D surface, you're compressing all that information, and you're like
Yeah.
saying, okay, this 3D model in my head is now a 2D image, and that's all it's going to be. But in the 3D space, you can take all that extra information that you're thinking about and build it out. And to me, that makes just processing it and thinking about it a lot easier. It takes away the lost information when you're
Hmm.
translating something. Um, so whether it be like recently I was doing creature designs, and I can't, it's really hard for me to think about, anatomy when it comes to 2D things. First of all, because I come from a 3D background,
Yeah.
but also just because when I think of like a leg or an arm or something, I don't think of like a 2D representation. I think of the different muscles and the bone behind it and like a 3D object. And having a tool that can build all those at once, and you can spend time to layer things on, I think that's really incredible. And it's definitely going to change the way a lot of people are working if it hasn't already. It's changed. There's games and films I've been on where the entire studio are using Oculus headsets,
Hmm.
in terms of the concept artists and in terms of production as well. So it's, I mean, I would say people should pick it up if they're interested in it. There's artists I know that hate it, and that's perfectly okay. In the end, of course, as everybody says, it's just a tool. It's not going to take away drawing or painting or any form of design. But for me, it made a significant difference in speed and the way I think about something.
Yeah.
I realize I can design better inside VR. I mean, depending on what I'm working on, but if it's like a singular object that's really complex, it's easier for me to think about in VR because you can layer the shapes one at a time
Hmm.
without having to constrain them to a flat surface. You can
Right.
rotate it around, look at the interior, the exterior, put yourself inside of it. If you're making a cockpit, you can sit in it and feel where all the buttons are and the controls. If you're designing a set for a film, which I've done some of, there's, you can understand where the actors are going to be and how tall they will be and what it's going to look like from their perspective. There's a lot of big benefits to it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a quicker way to sketch out things specifically because I think both me and you will agree that, and I would assume now by now vast majority of artists would agree that you have to learn 3D, whether you like it or
Yes.
not. Like this is where
Yeah.
this is
I
going.
mean, there's a lot of people, there's specialized people I know who don't, and they don't like 3D and they don't want to learn it, and that's fine too. But it's going to limit opportunities.
I'll
And
be honest with you, unless and that's my personal opinion,
mm,
but unless you are an absolute outlier and then you can also somehow produce another skill that goes along with that
mm,
very specific narrow avenue. Let's say if you
mm,
only draw, if you only do drawings, right? Unless you are an, let's say, entertainer, or you can find another way, like another way of making the drawings to be unique, not just looking good. It for to me it's difficult to imagine those people being relevant in the industry for a long time. Maybe
mm.
now, maybe for next few years, but not after.
Okay. No, I see where you're coming from. Um, I think in my experience, and these are a few cases, not
Mm-hmm.
many, mind you. There are studios that like a person's work so much, or maybe it works so well for what they're trying to design,
Mm-hmm.
that they will work around the limitations in order to collaborate with that person.
For sure. Yeah.
And there could be people that are just so effing skilled at what they do that it's worth it for those studios to not have them completely integrated into the pipeline and
Mm-hmm.
just to use their design work. And I don't know, like I can't predict what the next 5 or 10 years will bring in that aspect or that regard, but I know that design is always going to be the most important thing.
Yeah, and it's
So if those people can design just as well
mhm.
in 2D and can design better than a 3D designer, and that studio values design over efficiency, which they should most of the time, then I think they can be fine.
Yeah,
But
I
like
agree
you
with you on
said,
that.
it's a very small percentage.
Hmm.
It's there's not many people that can get away with it
Yeah, there's not many people that really understand
in
design
our
so
field. In our
well.
field,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Like the design, I would say, I've said this before already about myself, where for the longest time I never felt I'm good at design at all. Like I always considered myself an illustrator up until like quite recently,
Mm,
maybe maybe some of the film projects that I started doing, or
mm,
maybe like the work I started doing for Naughty Dog is when I actually
mm,
found that what, I do actually have a little bit of a voice. I
mm,
can produce work that is unique enough to actually have that stamp.
mm.
That's Maciej's work.
Totally.
Um,
Yeah, recognizable.
yeah,
Is that what you're
exactly,
saying? Yeah.
exactly. But I've noticed, and I think I agree with you on that. It's to become a designer or good at design, it's not something that will take you a month. That's a
Mm.
lifetime skill.
Oh yeah.
And no matter how much software, the software knowledge will help you to realize your designs quicker,
Mm,
but it will not help you to become a better designer at all.
mm. Yeah.
So on
No,
that term,
totally.
I agree with you. But I'm saying it mostly because I look at the development of software and also development of AI. And
Mm,
I had that conversation with Ash. I would be curious to hear your opinion about it.
mm.
But when you look at the AI, like how quickly it's replacing the manual labor, like
Yes. Yes. The low skill labor in VFX.
yeah. And what I'm saying is like you might be really good at drawing, let's say, or really good at painting, and coming up with like really beautiful paintings,
Yeah.
right? But unless those are like really well designed, like you have an actual eye for cinematography in your paintings, or let's say you're designing the things in the painting as well, like to a level where it's like, oh, like I would never think about adding an object that kind of looks like that, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever that would be. Like unless you have that skill, it's dude, your days are numbered.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean because there's so many things being developed that take the illustration process to a much higher level in
Hmm.
AI. Like where
Yeah,
you can input the design and the illustration it will be done. Not right now, but soon it will be to a level where it will be done. And yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that point. I think the low level illustration, that sort of thing where you just know how to render, that is gonna be one of the first things to hit the bucket.
yeah.
Um, yeah, totally.
And then like when we talk about 3D or like whether you go with Oculus, headset and do VR designs, or
Mhm.
you work in actual 3D. Like those tools are becoming so easy and
Mhm.
easy to learn that like it makes no sense, even from just like a production perspective. Why would you
Yeah,
spend a couple of days on a painting, or like getting a result that you could otherwise achieve by using those tools
mhm.
and having way better results and more like in and more interactive results too, meaning that you can actually do changes that's not going to take another how many hours to get
Yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I saw a really interesting tool. I'm trying to remember where it was. It might have been, I hope it wasn't 2 years ago in Portugal at THU. It might have been last THU. I think it was a guy from Google who had been at a bunch of other AI firms before he went to Google's AI, and they were working on a 3D tool that was already apparently in use in some production houses, where you do a sketch, like simple line drawing sketch, very basic of different objects, like say a room layout or an exterior,
Hmm.
and the AI would analyze the sketch you have and say, okay, this is a couch, this is a lampshade, this is a painting on the wall, this is a carpet, a person, etc. And it would search Google's entire database of 3D models that they are creating right now and have created in the past, and fill in those pre-rendered because they've re-rendered all this stuff already out in every possible angle, and then it'll like color match it all together within just a couple minutes. And something like that is really interesting. It's like you can provide the composition layout, and then it'll give you all these choices for all the different elements, just to create this really awesome 3D composition with.
Hmm.
Of course, like we're talking about, the high level skilled designers, that was something that's always going to be sought after.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like a couple of years ago, I never thought any of the AI would touch a creative job. I thought that was like everybody predicted that was on the far end of the scale, right? Like that's all safe. But it's different now. It's interesting. It's going to be exciting and scary. I'm more excited than scared. I think it's going to make a lot of jobs easier. I think we'll be able to produce better work because of the efficiency boost that we'll get.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Yeah, I don't know.
I started reading this book. I'll actually report on it maybe once I'm done with it, but it's called, let's see, let me pull it up. Trying to figure out the name of it, but it's about the topic. It's like a broad topic of gosh, where is it? Why can I Audible? Come on.
It was from Audible.
Yeah, I have it on Audible. There you go. It's called, let's see, Range, Range. Why Generalists Triumph in Specialized World
Mm,
by David Epstein.
mm.
I got recommendation to read that
Oh, okay.
from Ash. Um, but I obviously I have to read it to know what it is about.
Hmm.
But I assume I know what it is about, like more or less, but just from the title. But I do agree with the premise of the title.
Mm,
I think we're at the point where the the specialty skills, like, they are not as dramatically different than the generalist skills, in
mm,
terms of like, because of the way software generates the content for us, and
mm.
how easy it's to generate the content, how 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 inexpensive it is right now as well, to get like really highly rendered stuff out of your computers that don't have to be like those beastly
Yes.
machines
Yeah,
to look
absolutely.
good. And if you compare that to what few years ago was considered to be top of the line, the best machine ever, took forever to render, now becomes real time.
Yeah.
And I'll be curious to hear your opinion about it. But don't you feel like for a vast majority of the audience that is out there, like vast majority of the people that that consume what we do, let's put it this way, right? They don't necessarily they can't necessarily tell a difference between good art and amazing art.
Mm.
Like there's
I
certain ceiling where it's like, oh, it's awesome, and pretty much that's about it.
yes and no, because I think I think there's something about good design that speaks to people on a subconscious level that people that aren't designers or even can be designers but aren't able to realize it, that they don't, they don't understand because of all the knowledge that's imbued with something. It could be something as easy as like, oh man, how do I describe this in words? Like accessibility of an image where you understand the idea so clearly, like your mind understands the idea so clearly, or the way the world is designed, like whatever the image is representing in a culture, it all makes sense because it's all been thought out. Like, for instance, where people have grown food, how they get around, like all those things tied together. To a certain extent, I agree with you. Like, there's always going to be the vast majority of people, I think, at least this is just my opinion as well, I feel like prefer something that's I don't know, less complex.
Right.
Whereas a lot of designers will have a taste they develop over time for things that push on that push the limit on a design or push the limit on an idea. That a lot of people that are normally just into art, that aren't artists or designers, they might not be as into it because they don't want to take the time to understand it. Maybe I'm guessing at it. I'm not really exactly sure. I do agree with you in the way that like most people will not be able to differentiate that good from great art. But I feel that they also I feel like it's the same feeling of when someone that doesn't know anatomy looks at a piece, like looks at a character and maybe the anatomy's off, but they don't know how to say it. They'll say, okay, something's wrong here, but they won't know what. I think it's like that subconscious thing where that a really amazing piece of design will have that information imbued with it, that someone will be like, this is incredible. I can't pinpoint all the little reasons why it's incredible, but it works in a way that my brain understands really well. And it works in a way that's like thoughtless, that like you instantly understand whatever it is, the read, the purpose, all of that. It's my guess at it. Overall, I agree with you. I think that like the mass of people will prefer something that's like less complex.
For sure.
Yeah.
I to that argument, I would say, like someone could say, hey, like, but what about Apple? Apple sells iPhones and Apple computers, and they are pretty like wildly popular, and people like really enjoy what they offer. But I guess the counter argument could be, yeah, because they are very easy to use. Like by default, they're just like super accessible. So in terms of, I guess, the UI UX, they're leading they're the leader of the pack, let's say. Just how easy, like people call it ecosystem. Very little things that you look at it as like, does it really matter? But like once you put them all together, it's like,
exactly.
Oh, like this machine is so easy to use, like I don't have to care about the drivers. I don't have to care about this. I don't have to do that. Exactly.
Yeah. You combine all the tiny things that would maybe take up a second or 5 seconds of your time normally, and all those together will make, all that compressed down and removed will make any experience a lot nicer and easier for people who don't want to spend the time or don't have the time to really understand or get into it. Also, it presents, an image. It presents an aesthetic. Obviously, they have their unique aesthetic that is seen as like successful or very sleek and pleasing. That's not focused on, for instance, the running power of machine, but more on just, I don't know, it could be lifestyle or could be just a way of thinking that is more design oriented, that's more aesthetically oriented. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I agree. I agree with you. I think it's way more accessible, and
Yeah.
it can be a similar thing with art.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, it comes down to I guess it's a good relation to the power of computers, right? Most people don't need like the top of the line machines to enjoy what they like. Like they don't care that if the phone has like the better chip that's faster or whatever. They do care more about the fact that you can send a photo to friends and they can look at the photo that's high res, not like some pixelated stuff from the 80s, you know?
Mm. Yeah,
which
totally.
which one of the reasons like why I'm still with I do have iPhone, and I don't think I'm gonna replace it anytime soon because it just does everything I need to do. I don't care about those extra features personally,
Yeah.
It's just like I can send the photo to a friend and they're gonna actually see what's on the photo. That matters a lot.
Barubi in the chat is saying, "Good to see you, Barubi. The new
Oh,
Mac
there's
Pro is
Burpee.
insane." He's saying the new Mac Pro is insane. I
Yeah,
distinctly remember
we can talk
you.
about that. So
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I wasn't the person that I didn't
I
see the
just
new.
briefly read about it, and so they've said it's gonna be awesome, and I believe them. But they said they are going with AMD,
Oh yeah, okay, that's why.
which makes it problematic
You
simply
just put it up there.
because
I see.
right. So for I'll be curious, but the problem with here is the problem why I'm sad that it's a AMD based machine, and it has nothing to do with AMD itself. It's AMD is a good company. They produce good stuff. Um, here is the problem. Every single software that we use, almost every single software, especially render engines, most of them, if not all of them, like from the GPU side, operate on CUDA cores, which is a
Yeah,
specifically NVIDIA thing.
yeah,
If you wanna do V-Ray renders, you're out of luck with AMD cards. You're just out of luck with AMD cards
yeah.
unless you are doing you know let's see. Can you pick the? I'm curious if you can pick a and like the you know if you can pick Nvidia card for it, then it's a no-brainer for me specific.
Yeah, then it's fine.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Okay. Okay,
Then I
cool.
would pay double the price of a regular computer to have it.
Okay. Well, hopefully they will.
Yeah,
That'll be good then.
but the problem is like I am invested into operating with. Yeah, they only
Well,
have.
you have your own workflow. Like you have a way that you do things, and if you're in the middle of a job or two jobs or something, you don't want to have to pause and change how you run your life, you know. And
Mhm.
I think that's something you can change when you're starting in the industry, but if doing that change in the middle of like a big production will take so much time and like efficiency and, you have a lot of things going on in your life. I try to I like bringing in new things, to my workflow. I don't like having to change out the whole way I do something. Um, I'm not sure if it's the same with you.
Yeah. There's some comments if I like it, that maybe it seems that I'll be paying for Apple brand rather than quality. I don't think this is true. I mean, yes, it's true that you can get a PC. It has open GPU slots. That's cool. That's cool. I'm kind of learning real time on this.
Yeah.
I need to read about it. I'll be honest with you. Like I need to read about if you can put your Nvidia cards in it, it's a no-brainer. I'm gonna drop
Yeah.
all the money on it. Here's why. Um, I've done work on both systems. I've done work on PCs and I've done work on Macs. And yes, you can buy way faster machine. You can get really good results in terms of like the amount of horsepower you can get out of the system for the price range. But once you get into that game of drivers,
Mm.
updates, finding the right driver with the right update, and you have those the triangle of Windows, the graphics card drivers, and then the software code. And if any of those are out of sync, you're fucking losing your mind.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
I've been there.
I
Yeah.
had this, my system was working perfect. Then I don't know which part updated, and it just all went to hell, blue screens everywhere, and I had to update everything, and it just became unstable and shaky
Yeah.
until they fixed it. But it was a couple of weeks of
Oh, it's a
hell,
pain. Yeah, it's a
dude.
pain.
And so like, and if you think about it, for a lifetime of your machine, especially on the high level, when you work with like really important clients and every minute matters, and you really want to deliver your best work, and you have to deal with that, like how much energy it takes out of you when you're working on something and it's going really well and it fucking crashes.
Yeah. It's the worst. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen in the middle of a project. However, I will say this. In all the time I've known Berube, he's always been right about most things. I can't really think of something off the top of my head that he's been wrong about. And I trust him. And I feel like he always researches his stuff really well. So I feel like Berube thinks it's good.
Yeah,
There
I
must be
trust him
something
too.
good about it. Yeah, right? Berube knows his stuff.
I guess it's gonna come like it has open PCI slots. That means that technically you can put your cards there, right?
Yeah.
I guess it just comes down to whether they're gonna be supported on Mac. I'm pretty sure they will. But yeah, historically they were not supporting NVIDIA cards because you could technically get an eGPU, but you had to install like third-party, workaround because Apple never actually did support the NVIDIA GPUs, so you're kind of like doing it on your own risk that it's gonna crash. The reason why I love macOS, not only because it's like, again, like it's so easy to use and so difficult to mess up in terms of the functionality of it, but also because like just think about it. You have a system that has very specific parameters, right? So it's very easy, very, very easy to design the software code specifically for that system. Because there's not going to be hundreds of manufacturers that have different approach to how their hardware is designed, how their chipset is compatible with other, elements in your computer. And it reminds me game development. Like why a lot of game developers work in like to work with the the console systems, because console systems have exactly same hardware, so you can bug fix really easily because what's in there, right? Versus PC, you have to think about all the different
components
that can go
who knows
wrong.
how many manufacturers.
Exactly. And so like when the game is buggy and it's on PC, like it's like insanely intensive to actually troubleshoot all that stuff, because every manufacturer has their own driver. Every driver is coded differently. They're supposed to do the same thing, but there's always room for error. So like when you take that to consideration, and now put the software on top of it, and then put like this weird non-tested software patches that come with like Windows updates, because sometimes when they release the update, I don't update at all, almost ever.
Oh no, totally, man, because you can get a blue screen just straight off the bat.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that could have that's a possibility to consider, that if you update something to a latest version, you could be dealing with like a huge system error, and that's happened many times. It's weird. You have to like make sure everything's in check, then go back to your system preferences. There's a lot of weird shit that can happen. But thankfully, every time that's happened to me, I don't think I've ever had a meltdown so big that it's just fucked everything. Like I always keep everything backed up onto like 2 hard drives at least every day, and it's it's those extra steps where if you get screwed over once in your life by something like that, from then on what you need to do to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
And thankfully, that usually happens to people early on, so most people are prepared for it in the end.
I just made myself a pretty solid backup. Like,
oh, awesome!
Yeah, I went and I had backups before. I actually lost a lot of work because I was stupid, and never invested enough time. But I did like the last thing I've done, or like what I've done recently, is that actually it's a lot of money, but it was worth the effort. I've set up this NAS system, which is basically like it's like its own little server.
Awesome.
It's like you're having your own little server that has like a Linux-like operating system on it.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's from Synology. It's super easy to set up. It costs
You
a
can
lot of money.
you can probably like FTP into it and everything from anywhere,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like the box itself, I think I paid like $900 just for a box, and then you like the pro level whatchamacallit, the hard drives. I think I went with the Red Pros, the NAS Red Pros. So I have like 24 terabyte system.
Bro.
There. Yeah. But the good thing is like 2 hard drives can die. Like if two hard drives can die at the same time,
I'm but
still
like
good
the
with
likeliness of that happening.
Yeah,
and I know
it's like super
it's
secure.
great. Like you can sleep at night now. Like nothing in the world will screw your project up. Even if there's like electrical malfunction and lightning hits your house, it'll still be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I have like the UPS connected to it, so like I'm protected from like power surges and everything.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome. It's pretty fucking expensive too.
Yeah.
But it's worth because like all of the work I do is a digital data, and it just has to be protected.
Of course.
I love it though. It's easily like a new computer almost, but it was just worth the because not only now I don't have to care about the amount of hard drive space, because it's there and I can expand it. I can hot swap disks. Like I need a bigger disk. I just put the new one. It rebuilds itself because it's like a quasi RAID system.
Yeah,
it doesn't require.
Yeah,
but it doesn't like this one that I have doesn't require to have all the same disks. Like you can put different sizes, and it calculates it on the fly.
I might look into getting one of those. It sounds really great. You don't have to reset anything up. It just automatically.
It's super easy. It's super automatic to set up. Super easy to set up. And the next steps I'm doing is building like a 10 gigabit connection, which might be fucking getting like the new Mac Pro if I can really get it working with NVIDIA cards. That would be amazing.
The ultimate supreme.
Yeah, then like
computer setup.
Then I don't have to have hard drives. I can literally work from the NAS system specifically. And the great thing is I can access it from everywhere. Like
so if you're in another country and you or you're in a meeting somewhere with a client or a director, you can go onto it and pull up something on your phone probably and be like, hey, this is my desktop PST that I just grabbed.
Yeah, and you can open your laptop, get on it almost like its own hard drive on your laptop through internet, and then pull up the work files and start working on it without having like an external drive that you have to tag along,
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's like was one of the investments that I was like really thinking about.
Yeah.
Should I do it? But
one less thing to worry about, on your data. Yeah.
Unless someone breaks in.
Yes, that's true, but I mean, that's not gonna happen.
I have cameras everywhere, police dogs. I don't share my location. Fuck it.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Dude, let's do some QA. There's been quite a bunch of questions, and we've been like chatting for. Wow, it's been an hour and a half.
Yeah, time flew by.
Time's just flying.
It was a really good chat, by the way, Mache. I learned a ton about all that stuff. I think I'm gonna have to look into one of those NAS setups. It sounds awesome.
I will in the description of this, I usually put like a bunch of links.
Cool.
My social media for anyone who wants to follow. I have my kit. Actually, let me place it in chat right now. There's this website called kit.com. And it's pretty good because it allows me to share the hardware that I have when people ask about it. But it also, it's basically one giant affiliate link. So anytime someone decides to like, oh, I like this stuff, I want to purchase it. If you go through the link that is in that link, then I get a little kickback.
Yeah.
I get like a few percentages from the sale, which is great, because then I can take that and invest into new hardware. So it's
That's
like one
awesome.
way of people supporting.
Yeah, I just saw it. It's cool.
So yeah, you can find pretty much what I have there, my
Okay.
current setups. But anyways, let's get into questions. Let's see what we have here. It's a pretty lively chat.
Yeah, we've had a lot of
Yeah.
discussion happening.
I need to start pre-recording like painting because it's just this one giant kick in the face.
Oh damn! I haven't. Damn, that looks fucking sick, dude. I'm sorry. I've been staring at my other monitor this time, so I hadn't seen that. Jesus Christ, it's a lot of detail you got there, Machi.
Oh yeah, we've been going bananas with this stuff. Let's see.
Can I elevate one question just because
Yeah,
he's
go
a really
ahead.
close friend of mine? So just because I feel it'd be unfair not to. So Jonathan asked, what was your process in creating the last monster you uploaded? That was like 90% VR. So I did it all in Medium, and the sculpt was about like 1 or 2 hours for the scene. So I did the creature. I did like a base model in DAZ of just the anatomical proportions I wanted. I imported that into Medium. I did Medium over the sculpt and did the design I wanted to, and I sculpted the environment around the character inside of Medium. I exported the whole thing to Cinema 4D and rendered it in Octane there. And I had most of my materials already made. I have like 100 materials I've had from past projects, and then I painted over it. And that was the main process. So I would say like 90% of the work was done in 3D. I added all the volumetric fog, all the lighting effects. I didn't really have to touch too much. And nowadays, I think you can have so much control over it in Octane. Like, as you know, Jonathan, I learned a lot of 3D stuff from you. You can do so much in 3D that, like, I love painting, and there's times where I'll do a lot of painting on a piece. But if I'm just trying to get an idea down and like I know what that idea is going to be,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do as much as I can as fast as I can, and that's usually VR and Octane,
Cool.
and that'll be it.
So you're a Cinema 4D guy, huh?
Yes, it's interesting. I learned
I like
cinema
cinema. I
for
love
I
it.
love it. I learned it for a completely different reason though. When I was growing up, when I was like 14 or 15, I learned it for abstract art. I was on a forum that made digital signatures, like SIGs, like for forum art. And I learned it to create abstract weird shit for signatures. And then one day I saw Stephen Messing's talk about how you can use Cinema 4D for concept art. I was like, fuck yes, all this time I put into making random abstract bullshit, I can actually put that into like actually concept art now. And it's so easy to use and it works seamlessly with Octane.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about it is that you can anything you have in Cinema native, Octane converts it automatically. It's really easy.
Yeah, they just bought Redshift,
Yeah, I saw
and
that. I saw
yeah,
that.
and they
That's going to
might.
be interesting. I'm going to have to see like how
It's
hard a
very
switch.
interesting where it's going for sure, because
Yeah.
like you have 3ds Max basically owning, or Autodesk basically owning Arnold. So you
Yeah.
have Arnold for 3ds Max, and I think now for Maya as well. So that's
Yeah.
your like almost a default production ready awesome renderer. And now Cinema 4D did the same thing
Yeah.
with Redshift, And
Yeah.
I've
Totally.
been playing with Redshift for a bit within Cinema 4D. It's pretty awesome. Like one of this because I haven't been touching it for a while, like for years, and then I came back looking at it recently, and it's like wow, like the camera settings, like the amount of camera settings you can do, just purely camera. Because I'm like right now just a camera geek.
Yeah.
Like the amount of settings you can do with the lights and the cameras is
Oh
pretty
man.
intensive. Like
Okay, I'll check it out for sure then. A
it's
lot of
above
people
and
have
beyond what
recommended
I
it.
was expecting, and it's like
Okay.
actually way more developed than V-Ray. Because I've up until now I was thinking like V-Ray has probably the best settings when it comes to like making realistic cameras. Not
Hmm.
anymore. Like from what I see, not anymore.
Okay.
So I'm curious.
I'll check it out then. That sounds awesome. I mean, a lot of people recommended it. And now
Yeah.
that Cinema owns it, I mean, you might as well check it out.
hmm
Yeah.
How do you apply your creative and different gouache studies to your concept work?
Mm. Yeah, so I used to do a ton of like digital plein air. Actually, I was really lucky. I had Rob Rupel as a teacher for the digital plein air class at Art Center, and I learned a ton from that. And when I went into traditional media, it was because a lot of painters that I really admired had been doing gouache studies, and it seemed like it felt like that was a natural transition from concept art. It felt like all my concept art friends that went into painting from concept art chose gouache for a reason, and
Hmm.
it dries really quickly. You can get your sketch down really fast in like 30 minutes to an hour, and you can learn a lot about value relationships, color mixing from that. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I tried to do. And it's the way I apply it is. I mean, like I definitely observe my environment, and I learn the same things I do in real life through painting. Like if I was to do a digital painting, but I think that when you have to do color mixing, I think it bakes it into your mind a little bit more, like the relationships between
Right.
colors. It's a lot harder. Like my first couple months were terrible, and I still do it. I still paint, and I really do think it helps improve color relationships. Like I think I've learned a lot from it. It could be something that you see, in a relationship between trees to sky to shadows. But it also could, I think you definitely learn something even subconsciously through studying, just like copying what's in front of you and understanding the values and the material indication and like indication. That's a really good one. I think I
Hmm.
learned a lot about indication through it, and the way to simplify is huge. I think I learned a ton about simplification through gouache, and
Right.
I feel the more you can take out of something and have it still work, well and read well. I think that's really important. It's something great to study, and that's something that I really picked up a lot through gouache. Is that you try to get as much done as little time with the largest brushstrokes, and you make it difficult for yourself, but you come away learning how to simplify a lot of information
Hmm.
down to really broad strokes that say a lot.
Yeah, I've never done gouache myself, like actually um, plein air, like actual real plein air.
Mm,
I've never done it,
mm,
but sounds to me, I see parallels with
mm.
photography.
Oh,
It's
totally.
it's like
Photography,
mhm.
yeah, absolutely. You can learn so much of that too.
It's just finding like you quickly realize like finding the right lighting and the weather condition plays a significant role of
Yeah,
what you can capture,
yeah,
and then capturing the right moment at the right time, and then also
yeah.
framing it correctly. One of the things I've noticed, because I like shooting with long lenses, and even though I shoot with like 70 to 200, I still
Mm,
crop in.
mm. Oh,
So that
yeah,
means like I want to go even longer,
yeah, yeah,
oftentimes.
totally.
But
That's
also,
interesting. I'm the opposite. I like the wide lenses, man.
it's a preference. It's
Yeah, it
really
totally
that's
is. It
what it
totally is.
that's what it really is. It's just like it's how you view the world and what do you want to capture.
Yeah,
It's really that simple. There is no.
yeah.
I hate those conversations. I get tangled in them myself sometimes, and I realize like why am I even entertaining that? But I do hate the conversation where this lens is better than that one,
Oh,
in
yeah,
terms
no,
of
no,
like
no. Yeah,
the 50 millimeter is the one you should use for this. Like yeah, maybe, not necessarily. It depends
yeah,
how you view it, and what do you
yeah.
want to
And a
capture.
person's
Hmm.
stylistic choice and director's
Exactly.
stylistic choice. It's not like everybody uses the same lens for
Right.
every shot.
Yeah.
And some movies stand out just because of the unique choices of lens that the
Yeah.
director uses.
Exactly. When you watch, for instance, Coen Brothers movies, they are very often using very wide lenses, but they're using them in a very specific way where they get really
Mm-hmm.
close to the character, and it
Mm-hmm.
almost caricaturize the expressions,
Yeah, the
which
proportions
makes
of it. Yeah.
yeah, and makes their behavior, their silly unorthodox behavior even funnier, even more and
Yeah.
more funny that way. Versus like when you watch Michael Mann's movies, which are very often shot on like a longer, more like a telephoto. It's just like there's a certain way that in his movies there's like a clear separation between background and foreground, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
character focused. But you almost feel like you're a spectator rather than a part of the conversation,
Yeah.
and it's a very
Yeah. I see what you
deliberate
mean.
choice in terms of how those movies are shot.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. But yeah, I can see similarities. What things do you use in your process to help simplify the starting points of your environment concepting process? Do you have any tips to boost the beginning of your process?
The beginning, so like sketching phase, I'm guessing you're
Yeah, like
talking
just
about.
speeding it up.
Yeah, so my process has changed a lot over the years. I feel like the more you understand your craft and you understand the subject material of what you're trying to create, the more you can picture it, at least for me. Like when I imagine environments now, I didn't used to be able to do this, but now I can imagine what my final design is going to be a lot of the time. And I can be like, okay, this is what I can like see it. Like, okay, this is what I need to do. How am I going to get there? Okay, I start with, I'll sometimes just go straight into the 3D model because I know what I want to create. With other disciplines that I'm not as good at, like creature design, for instance, more recently, a lot of the times I'll sketch something out first. For beginners, it was really important for me when I was starting to get the speed of doing environments and designs quickly. It
Hmm.
was very important to do a lot of studies. I know Machi, you had different experience, but for me, plein airs helped a lot for me to understand light and color and values. So after I did the plein airs, I noticed when I went back to painting an environment, I was able to pick the right values, colors, and everything on the spot much easier than having to go back and redo a lot of shit.
Right.
I also really like to, or I did like to do sketches beforehand. So I'll do very simple, like, round brush sketch of where the major shapes will be. They won't be like very specific. They could be, okay, a tree is like, a long form in the canvas, or there's a
Hmm.
landscape that's a certain size, or a mountain, or a character. But it'll help you understand the possibilities of what angle you're going to use, what amount of distortion, the perspective, like all that information, I think, can be really helpful for a student to practice. And the last thing that really got me to be able to visualize something quick was, and this is probably the most effective thing for me, was timing myself. And I timed myself for, like, I would say around 100 paintings that I did at one point in class. I was doing them within 45 minutes to an hour. And no matter how far the painting was at that hour point, I stopped. And it was like soul crushing sometimes because I could see that the painting didn't need much more, or maybe it would have been really good, but I made sure to stop. And the reason is that the next time you go into a painting, you're going to make decisions faster because you don't want it to end up like with wasted potential. So
Hmm.
the fact that you're losing out on a cool painting, and then your next one you work faster so you don't lose out, that is something that kind of internalized decision making in a really good way for me, so that I was able to effortlessly make decisions. Because when I started out as a student, I used to question things a lot. I'd be like, I'd
Right.
draw some strokes
That
and I'd be
makes
like,
sense.
is this how it looks? Is this the way it should be? Is this the best way to simulate this? But after repeating that process of stopping, timing, it becomes something where you don't even really think about it. You don't have a question in your head.
Hmm.
You look at it and your eyes can immediately connect with your brain and say, this is good or this is bad. And you will, like, millisecond decision is made. You're making the next stroke. You're making the next, texture. You're making the next character, etc. So I think the act of timing yourself and learning that way is really helpful. At least it was for me.
Yeah. Do you ever work in reverse? That meaning, like, actually, I'm gonna spend my sweet ass time to actually now do something else rather than time myself to
Oh,
get
I
better
don't
at the.
time myself anymore. I don't. This was only when I was a student.
Hmm.
I know there's some people, like I heard some stories about Vitali timing himself on every project when he was at IOM, and that's really impressive. I think that it's something that for
Vitaly
me
is a robot,
created.
though. Like, just let's
Yeah,
let's be real about it. He's his own Skynet, so yeah, it's a kind of different person.
for me, that period where I timed myself was very stressful, and it was helpful for sure. And there were other times where I timed myself. But for professional work, I haven't timed myself for probably years now. Like I
Hmm.
don't time myself anymore. If I what I do is I look at the clock and I'm like, am I doing this fast enough? Yes or no. But most of the time, I think after you paint for like years, you come to have this internal clock in your head that you're like, okay, I spent 45 minutes on this painting. It's time to move on. You don't really need a timer. You understand from your base concept. Okay, I have this idea in my head. This is going to take me this long to do.
Hmm.
And usually you can be like, for me, I'm fairly accurate with judging that. If I have a client that has a design and I know what I need to design, then I can easily break it down into steps because I know my process really well and I know how to solve that problem. And it's just something where you break it down into the simplest steps. I'm logical in that way, where I approach a problem and I try to break it down into like smaller things, and then that into a smaller thing until you have all these individual parts and you just assess how long each one is going to take. So that's kind of my advice to that person.
Let me interject my question here.
Yeah, of
Which is
course.
sort of like a follow up to this, because like we've worked on a couple of film projects already, and you can tell that there are some shows, especially when you work with designers that have been in the concept art sphere or understand design really well, that the way you work with them is vastly different than
Oh yeah.
the way you work with others. Meaning,
Yeah.
they will ask you for an idea, and
Yes.
usually they can tell from the first sketch whether you're going in the right
That
way
is
or not,
so nice when that
instead of
happens.
doing like 20. What's your take on this specifically? Like, how do you approach that? Because like obviously, the easiest way to say when you work with someone who might not be, it might not be their forte to figure out design quirks from the get-go, but they just need options to choose from. um, how do you approach that specifically? Because like I'll tell you, like on my personal level,
Yeah.
I'll obviously do it because that's my professional work, right? When I'm working with the client, I want to make sure that I'm solving their problem,
Yeah.
rather than like, oh, I'm just doing what I like, right?
Yeah, of course.
But I personally feel that the best work I do personally is when I'm left to my own devices and allowed to actually explore my strengths,
100%.
you know?
100%.
And I
Yeah.
did that with Ghost in the Shell, like that was a very specific project in which, I was working directly, for the most of the time, directly with Rupert, and we kind of built this relationship where he would just basically trust me with, having the right eye to
Yeah.
deliver the proper designs that he wanted for the movie. And obviously we would do back and forth and some revisions and whatnot. But in most cases it would be just like, I'm designing this one piece and then giving you additional options, but those are the options that I felt would look cool personally, not because I need to deliver X, Y, and Z, or like X amount of numbers just to make myself look good.
Yes. I
Um,
think the key thing you said there was trust. And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to, because he had trusted in you because you have experience on films to know what would work and what wouldn't work. And he trusts you because you are a good designer that will be able to tell if something looks too busy or not. And he probably really loved your style and hired you because of who you are, not as just a hand, right?
yeah,
And I think that it's been a long time. I think I haven't been like hired as a hand since like one of my first projects that I've been on, and that's because I try to push my own style and because I try to make stuff that looks unique so that I don't get hired for stuff like that. But I think what you said, it comes down to trust between the production designer and the artist, where they will give you a set of guidelines. They'll say, okay, this is what we need, but I'm gonna let you have fun with it. Like, please give. They're hiring you for your idea, right? Like
yeah,
that's usually the best case scenario, is that they hire you for your idea. And I totally agree with you in that sense, where that is the best place to be, where you're not like, you can't just explore everything, but you have an idea, like a key thing that you need to hit. But there's totally room to have different options, and they all can be like a little bit different from each other, and all could work at the same time.
yeah,
And then the nice point is where you submit all your options, and you hopefully like every single one of them, and they all could potentially work. And then the production designer picks one, and you're both happy because he likes it, you like it, he or she likes it, whatever. I agree with you, first of all, and there have only been a couple scenarios, strangely enough, that I've worked with production designers who aren't from the design background. Most of the production designers I've worked with have been able to sketch or paint or visualize what they want,
yeah.
or tell me, we don't know what we want, but this is the kind of general idea. And that's always a really fun thing, because, like you said, you can provide them with an early sketch and like some very rough ideas if they have the time to look at it, and you get so much more mileage and save so much more time
Yeah.
and hassle and everything. Like, the worst thing is when they're so busy that like you do a full painting and you present like 4 full painting options that are rendered, and like 2 days later they get back to you and say, okay, none of these work. And if you had shown them that sketch in the meantime, you would have saved all that time. And we want the production to succeed. Like we want to do a good job. We want the production to succeed, and it's yeah. I don't know. I've always, I think there's only been one instance where I had a production designer who didn't work with sketches. All the other production designers I've worked with, thankfully, I know there's a lot out there that don't, but almost all of them for me have been able to understand sketches. And like could be as simple as like a napkin sketch. You show them like a little napkin sketch and you say, okay, this is how this works. Imagine it rendered up, for instance, and that will be enough to convince them of the design. So for me, yeah.
I think vast of them do understand like the concept of sketching, obviously.
Yeah.
I've noticed, I've never had like a specific issue where, it's like I'm doing all of those designs and like none of them are working and I cannot, for the love of God, I cannot understand like what exactly you want. Like that rarely ever happens. But I've noticed, there's the difference between designers that, as you said, like they do have that artistic background. They were either illustrators before or, had something to do with the design, versus some who are more from the crafts level.
Yes, you mean like from the people who work their way up from like maybe like assistants and set design and then production design versus like concept art or illustrator, etc. Then production designer. Yeah, no, there's definitely a difference.
Yeah, there
is.
But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying that like there's a difference, but it's the rarest thing that's happened to me, and this has only been one time, is all the production designers I've worked with, even the ones that understand like the sketches, there's only one time where I haven't been able to really understand what they're trying to get at. And it was because they were using emotions to describe physical objects.
Right.
And I'm sure you've been there too, right? Where you'll have like someone tell you it has to feel nice or it has to feel like interesting. I don't know, like, just like vaguely descriptive things that can mean anything. And that's a nightmare.
Did you find a way to deal with that?
I thankfully guessed at what it could be and I was correct. But
you know what I do? Like really I tried to do? It's like send me a lot of references. Like
yes.
Everything.
Oh, that's great.
Like
yeah, if they can send you references, that's dope. Yeah.
Can you send me exactly what you like? Like I would like be as blunt as that. Like send me a photo or concept that you feel like this is exactly what I want.
Yeah.
In terms of, and then like I pair that with everything else that they say, and then sort of like try to compute if that's exactly what they're after or not.
Yes.
I think the good part of this is, interesting part of this is that designers or people who are not from the artistic background, they have different background, and then you kind of it's a very interesting dynamic, because then you start to learn that what you are designing has to have a meaning towards that specific thing, right? So for instance, if it's a set related stuff, you're not only thinking about the way it's going to be constructed and the way your concepts or illustration is going to end up being built, because that's obviously very important. But then sometimes like how those sets are going to fit into the cinematography, how they're going to convey the specific emotions of the moment. Yeah. And there might be different, stylistic choices you're going to go after, just because, that very specific moment that has a very specific camera angle that you have to design. If you use very sharp shapes, that might not work well with like this very serene, environment that they're after, or vice versa,
Yeah, and a lot of times you don't, like, I'll be the first one to admit it, I don't always know exactly what they're planning to do with the set, Like, you could be asked to do a set and not have any idea how it's going to be shot or where.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
And it kind of, in the end, it's up to like production designer, I think, to guide you through that process and be like, okay, because they hopefully have an idea how it's going to be shot.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can be a tricky instance for sure.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. It's way different than video games.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump to another question. How do you guys find your focus? There's so many distractions. It's easy to get lost and do nothing and get nothing done. How do you get into the zone to maximize productivity?
So personally, as a freelancer, the toughest thing about freelancing for me, honestly, is the lack of human communication in your life. Surprisingly, and the way I found that manifests is that I will get distracted and want to talk to people. And I make sure nowadays to see people at lunch and dinner and to go on hikes with people. And I have like a gym partner I go with. And I also, for the studio I'm working with now, I stipulated in my contract that I want to go into the studio 2 days a week to have that interaction with the team there, even though I don't have to. I like working from home too. Um, for me, how that manifests when I'm feeling that way is that it's harder for me to get stuff done because I feel sort of emptiness inside. And the way that I kind of try to get more focus is that when I personally have enough inspiration from outside sources through either travel or reading books, which I do a lot, or listening to audiobooks or podcasts, as long as my brain is getting information that's inspiring me, that directly translates to what I'm working on. So it could be from interaction with people. It could be like all the other things I said, going to a museum, going out to see your friends and having a night off. The times I know I get distracted are when I don't feel right in that way, that I don't feel like all my needs as a person are being taken care of. And like other ways that I like to get into the zone, like I love listening to music. There's times where I want to listen to a podcast or I want to listen to an audiobook, but I need to focus heavily, and that's when I'll just play like EDM or house music or something that's high paced to really get me working and in the zone. I'll take a walk. Like a lot of times, I hope people don't look down on this, but like a lot of times I'll just take a break and walk, and I find that stimulates my brain activity to think about something differently than how I am. And everybody's been there where like you don't get enough sleep one day and you go to sit down at your computer and like, oh damn, I have 8 hours of work to do today, and you just don't feel like you can put it out. But like a lot of the times when I talk to people about art blocks at like conventions, they ask me about it. I don't really have a healthy way of dealing with it. If I feel like I'm having an art block coming, I just sit down and start working, and I just force myself to work. And I feel for me, what's always been the case is that maybe the first 5 minutes of working with an art block suck. But after you get through like 10, 20 minutes, I always feel better. Like as long as you can grasp something that you're inspired by, that you're working with on your project, as long as you have that little spark of like hope that like, okay, I'm going to do something cool today, that's what will keep me always motivated and continue pushing forwards. And I think that's why when you do feel down, you are distracted, it's because you don't have that feeling of fire or passion or motivation, and you need to grasp it somehow. And that's for me where like literature, travel, talking to people, all that stuff comes into play to give you the inspiration to want to push yourself and to make something interesting. So that's kind of my answer to that.
Yeah, it's difficult. It can be, yeah. I agree with you 100% there. Like working from home, if you're doing work from home, it's difficult. I find it more difficult to work in a studio though.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Main reason is because at home I can manage the distractions myself. I have a full control over it. It's just about setting up the proper boundaries and rules, like house rules, and setting up your time to be focused on work. Versus in the studio, you don't have that control, because there's always gonna be someone who comes over to your desk and like want to have a chit chat, or ask you something, and it's very easy to get distracted. You can shut yourself off completely unless there's a emergency from your client where like, hey, like we need something right now, and they'll call you. Like if you ignore their emails, they'll call you,
Yes, no, totally get what you mean. There's pros and cons to both. I think personally at my stage in life, what I like doing is alternating between freelance and working in-house somewhere. Like I'll usually take like 6 months in-house and then freelance for a while, so I could like to have more control over my life, because, you, Maciej, and I, like we can say, oh, I'm going to have a late lunch today and then go to the movies, or maybe I'll take like the morning off and then do all my work at the nighttime. Like usually you have the power to do that. And that is something that's so precious to me now. And the control over your life. And this will stem into something different, I hope you don't mind, is that I try to live my life the complete opposite of a 9 to 5. I want to have a new experience if I can every day.
Hmm.
And whether that's from working different hours or doing different things outside or different activities, I hate the feeling of looking back at like a period of time and it becoming a blur in your life and like having these memories that just blend
Yeah.
into each other, because it means that you haven't, like, I'm sure you've developed as a person during that time, but the memories, if they aren't there, that means nothing crazy happened. Like, you weren't having experiences that really stand out.
Hmm.
And that to me is a little bit scary, because if you have one life that's full of experiences at every moment, and another life that has the same existence day to day, one's going to be way more developed of a person and way more interesting than the other person, because of all the new ideas they're exposed to. And that, I think, just goes down to every facet of someone's life. So that's, and that's part of why I like freelance. It's because I'm not going to be tied down to a specific place, and I'm able to just take time off when I want to and
Yeah.
go do other things that I want to. So sorry on that tangent, but I think it's important to
No,
say, because I think
it's
it's one of the
important.
best things about how we live life.
Yeah, 100%. Like once I hate those times where I would just be so busy that the time flies by,
Hmm.
and you look back at your life and it's like, hmm, what did I do that,
Yeah,
like
yeah. Like,
like
what
nothing.
the entire last month? What were the major events that happened? And you
Yeah,
can't pick out something, and
it
yeah,
becomes
it's
really apparent once you have children as well. That's
okay.
where it becomes really apparent,
Okay.
because once you focus yourself too much into that rhythm of working all the time, you
Hmm.
start missing out on a lot of things, especially when kids develop.
I see.
You start to miss out, and you catch yourself on that when you take a break and then you've witnessed something new. Like,
Hmm.
whoa, like this happened. Like you don't want to have a you don't want to you don't want to look back at your life as it's like nothing was going on. I agree with you
Yeah.
100% on this. This is
Okay.
so important to have experiences and actually enjoy life, because that's
Yeah.
the only part. That's the only sort of the only thing that we all have in common is the amount of time we're gonna live on this earth. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, hey, like you can get sick and die anytime, like of course,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but everyone has a finite number when it comes to time, right? The day
Hmm.
is only 24-hour long. The week is only 7 days long. You
Hmm.
cannot stretch it. No matter how much money you have and how intelligent you are, there is no way you
Hmm.
can do anything about that specifically. So anything you do, it better if it has an intention to it, and you're not wasting time, then your week, even if you spend it only on work, but if you do it with intention, and
Hmm.
you specifically aim towards that, then you're doing it consciously, and then that engraves in your brain, and you at the end of the week, even though it might have been uneventful, meaning you
Hmm.
didn't have experiences, your experience is that you feel satisfied by the output of your work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I think that's really important. And when you procrastinate and find distractions, like always think, I always try to think about that specifically. Like, I do have finite amount of time, and
Hmm.
any moment I waste on it. And look, we all have different mood. Like every single, even the best, the most motivated person on earth will have their downtime.
Oh,
That's just
definitely.
like, don't get fooled by those, when you read those books, like be powerful, be this, be that,
Yeah.
like there's a reason why a lot of those guys have mental issues and see therapists as well, like
Yeah.
it's not so perfect. But it's a good thing to live by, where you put an intention towards your own life, like put intention towards your life, and make expectations that you're gonna be happy with by yourself, not don't take someone else's expectations and then try to fulfill them, because then you're
Hmm.
becoming a slave of someone else's expectations,
Totally.
basically.
Yeah, that's another really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's read maybe two more questions. Do
Cool.
you have any tips on managing carpal tunnel shoulder pain when working long, intense hours?
I mean, we can almost skip this. I feel bad, but I've never had any issue with any of that in my life.
I never had
And
the
it's
carpal
weird.
tunnel. Yeah.
I've never had any sort of pain in my hands or my neck.
But you're
I
active,
very
right?
I'm very
You
active,
there
very
you go.
active.
That's the answer. Like, be active. Like, don't sit in
Mm.
front of the computer all the time. Do some kind of workout. You don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
quite
be
did.
going to the gym all the time, but I can guarantee you that if you, it's all about the, like, really, you're getting carpal tunnel from doing repetitive thing over and over and not exposing your body to different kind of activity. And that's the
Mm.
only reason you're getting it, you know? So you just have to expose
That
yourself.
probably is it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like once you work out, once you run, go for a walk, just be active. You're taking a time off from just sitting in front and doing repetitive for too long. Like,
Yeah.
taking breaks is important, obviously.
Yeah. And you'll
And
feel way better. You'll be able to think better. You'll be able
yeah,
to design better. A lot of great things will happen. You'll have more energy. You'll stay up. You can stay up later if you want to.
yeah.
A lot of benefits.
Yeah, when I feel, like, sometimes I work really late, and when I
Mhm.
feel like I still have this thing to do, but I have no idea what I'm gonna do about it. You know what? Like, if it's not too late, because Santa Monica is a great place, but it's not safe at night. Let's put it this
Oh
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not
Gotta
the
be
safest
careful.
place. You have to watch for bums, and crazy
Totally
people.
crazy.
It gotten worse actually past few years. It's kind
Oh
of
yeah,
crazy where it's going.
yeah. We
But
were
anyways,
talking about that. Yeah,
yeah, it's weird. But anyways, but if I cannot go for a run, I'll hop on the bike, like on the
yeah,
stationary bike, and just like
yeah.
really
Totally.
power through it, get like really tired,
Yeah,
and then like the ideas come in all of a sudden.
yeah.
There's something about physical activity that clears your mind, in a
Totally.
way
Yeah,
where you can
totally.
start thinking, like, you're just detaching yourself from that block, and you know and moving on. So it's good.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Let's end with this. What's the personal project you talked about? Can you talk about it a little more, or is it's
Oh
under
God,
the
sorry, I'm not able
under the
to because it involves other people too.
ah
But it will be really cool when it is
nice,
done.
very cool. All right, yeah, that sounds
Maybe
good.
we do one extra question because that was so short. I don't know.
All right.
One more, Machi, one more.
Only if you insist. Let me find one.
Please.
Let me find one. Dum dum dum. I need to find a better way to get those questions out. We talked about VR already. Let's see. Um, there was one. Oh, this one's good. How do you deal with contracts as a freelance designer?
Oh,
What's included in your contracts to protect yourself as a freelancer?
I mean, I write my contracts. I make sure to clarify that with every company I work with that I'm able now. I didn't used to do this, and it caught me off guard very recently. But I make sure that I'm able to publish the work when the project's done. That's really important to me, like extremely important. There's times I've turned down projects totally if I haven't been able to, if they told me I'm not going to be able to publish my work.
Mm-hmm.
And I make sure that my rate is guaranteed for the whole thing. I make sure that if I don't work overtime, I haven't worked overtime in a very long time, but there's a part of it that stipulates if they need me to work overtime and I agree to it, that I'm paid double for that time. Um, my health insurance right now is covered by the union, so I don't really have to write anything about that.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, the good thing and bad thing, but I guess it's kind of good. The good thing about contracts for me is that I was effed over. I had my first like real contract fuck up when I was really young. It happened to me when I was like 16 or 17, and I had just started working. I didn't really know what concept art was yet. My stuff looked like concept art, so it was used as concept art, but it was with someone who was very charismatic and convinced me to do a lot of stuff when I didn't really have the brains to do it yet. And ever since that like year, I basically worked for this guy for like 5 or 6 months of time, and didn't get paid for any of it. So stupid, but I was really young at the time. Ever since that, I've been really, really careful.
Mm-hmm.
I get all my contracts read by a lawyer. Now I don't really need to do that because I've had like every situation that can happen now. I have a contract ready to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a film, if it's a game, if it's something short, if it's a job that can extend, I have another version of a contract I can use that's I know is like legal proof and can work. So no one has effed me over on the contract side since then. I handle my own taxes. As a freelancer, you need to know your shit when it comes to that. Trying to think of anything else contractual, really.
Taxes are important. Get a good
Yes.
get a good accountant if you can.
Yeah, you need. Yeah, I have an accountant. And yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, there isn't much else. As a freelancer, you have to be your own businessman. Like you have to stick up for yourself. You have to know when to say no. That's really important. Like to know when to turn something down, I think is really important, because you don't want to compromise your time and then lower your worth and lower the worth of everybody else in the industry by accepting jobs that aren't worth your time.
Yeah.
That's really big because in one way, you represent, if you're a concept artist and you're a freelancer trying to get a job, you represent concept art as a whole in a small way where the impression that you make on an employer, if it's that you can be taken advantage of, they're going to go ahead and take advantage of everybody else they can.
Yeah.
So you got to stick up for yourself, stick up for the community, and know your contracts, know your tax, know all the ins and out of, like, if you're going to start an LLC, you can read up on all that online, or an S corp. That's all really great stuff to save you a lot of money. And it doesn't take long to read up on it. A lot of people I know who I've told and given that advice to have just been really lazy about it, and they don't take time to read up on it. But
you can go to LegalZoom.
Yeah,
They'll explain it.
There's tons of and there's people, I guarantee you'll know people that have dealt with it too, and you can ask them. So it's something that's not impossible to learn by any means, and it'll save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. Big thing for me was starting my own LLC for sure, because not only taxes, but it gives you a certain amount of protections as well, liability-wise. It's very important, especially in the United States. It's a little different.
And you can write everything off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like now with the new tax laws, like you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're not going LLC, or like corp, S corp, whatever.
Yeah.
Having an accountant is important, obviously. I guess I approach it differently. I don't mind working without showing work, but then I make sure I'm getting paid more when that happens,
Definitely.
Yeah, like I'm not able to show work. Okay, fine. I need to be paid more because that's
And they'll usually accept that too.
Depends. Like if they don't, then they like, oh, it is what it is, and like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just you're not gonna.
I have everything. I have a lot of other things to do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's important. It's one of the most important things. I don't rely on it personally, specifically, because the reality and working on enough projects that I know that you never know how like when you start, you never know how much you will be able to produce and how good the work's going to end up being, because sometimes you're going to be on the project where the your director or production designer or whoever you work with, creative director, really allow you to explore ideas and get the best out of yourself, and then you're going to be really proud to show that work. But sometimes you get rushed, because like how the project is being managed and made. And then
it's never going to be in your portfolio no matter what.
It might be only like one piece or two, and but you're not going to be like, I'm super proud about that, versus I feel, and that's another important aspect, is like doing personal work is so much more important than professional work, because that's the work that you have a full control over to express yourself and be really proud of. And it creates an avenue of who you are as an artist or a designer, and it gives others an idea what they can hire you for, and so you can craft your hireability around yourself and what interests you, instead of just doing it because I need to get hired.
Yes, absolutely.
There's levels to it, obviously, because like if you don't have offers and you're constantly seeking for work, like you have way less to say. Like, let's just be real about that, right?
Yeah.
If you can only latch on the one work or another, you have to pay bills, you're going to grab everything you can.
Yeah.
And you don't have a say of saying like, oh, I want this in my contract. I'll find someone else,
Yeah, of course.
I'm
a big believer in like, with your personal work at least, do what you love to do and what you would want to do every day, and eventually you get the jobs that are meant for your style and your
Right.
way of thinking. Because then you're going to get the jobs that, like, if your portfolio is made up of stuff you love and you get hired, they're going to expect you to do the stuff that you love to do because that's what
Mhm.
they've seen.
Yeah.
And that's always the best case scenario, I think, is where someone wants you for your individual unique take on it rather than just being a designer or just an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Cool, dude. It's been
Well, man, it's
way
been
over 2 hours.
yeah, it's been a great pleasure talking with you, Mache. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been an
Yeah, it's been
honor.
a good one.
It's been super fun.
Yeah, let's do it again sometime soon. That was
Oh,
fun.
of course. Yeah,
That was
absolutely, man. It's
fun. You,
great.
you
And
know,
thank you.
you're invited anytime. Like if you're just like, hey, let's do podcast. Like, sure, let's do
Oh,
it.
dude. Oh, that means a lot. I'll definitely take you up on that sometime in the future. Thanks, man.
Sounds good.
And if you ever have time, let's grab lunch or something in
For
LA. I know.
sure.
Yeah.
We need to get Barubi out
Oh
of
yeah.
those
That.
offices. For sure. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks
Thanks,
for
guys.
being here live, and obviously, if you're listening to it later on, much appreciate for being part of the community. You can support the podcast by just watching it. Obviously, that helps a lot. That means you're enjoying it. Later on, it's going to be available on Spotify and all of those platforms. You can go to artcafe.tv. There's like all of them listed. I just need to upload that stuff there after we're done. But if you feel adventurous, you want to support the show, subscribe, and you can support it that way. I do have Patreon. It's something that I've set up, and if you feel like more adventurous, you can go there. It's fine. But otherwise, thanks a lot, guys. Much love, and I'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Cool. We're done.
Oh, we're done. It's off.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. That was great. It was so awesome talking with you. I learned